there, I'm Rebecca Klein, and this is my back to school night screencast for Spanish 1. And this is good for both the middle school and upper school classes of Spanish 1 I teach. So blocks 1, 3, and 6. You'll see my email address on this slide. That's the best way to get in touch with me, and students know that, and that's true for students and parents. So here's a bit about me. This is my 15th year at SAS. I'm teaching Spanish 1 and Spanish 3 honors track this year. I am the chair of the World Languages Department. I'm a 9th grade advisor this year. My previous advisees graduated in June, and so I'm really excited to be working with 9th graders both in class in Spanish 1 and in my advisory. Outside of teaching, I love doing stuff outside, running, biking, cooking, reading about food. In actuality, I end up warming up a lot of chicken nuggets for my kids who are 1 and 5. But something really important about them, I think, and teaching is just how much their language development has really influenced my teaching, particularly in the last 5 years. And this is really important for Spanish 1, just been thinking a lot about how students acquire a first language and then the similarities and differences between that and acquiring a second language. Here are a couple pictures of me. This top one is from a trip to Costa Rica, a SAS trip to Costa Rica that I led 7 years ago. And I've done a couple of those and trips to other countries and places too, India, Taos, the 9th grade backpacking trip. And I'm just looking forward to a time when we can do those again because they're great. And then this bottom picture is me and my family in our pandemic Seattle tourism thing we did. And we did that right before Pier 51 closed down this summer. So there we are. I learned Spanish. I studied Spanish in high school outside of LA. That's when I started taking it. I continued studying it in college. I was a Spanish and economics major in college. I studied abroad in Santiago, Chile. And that for me was the first kind of aha moment with Spanish where, wow, these skills I have and developing, I can really use to communicate with people, which was my passion. They helped me travel. They helped me kind of live some of the literature, history, social theory that I was studying. I also spent some time in college living and working in Mexico City. And then moved to Seattle, actually started teaching high school Spanish and sort of decided, okay, this is what I want to do. There were some pretty big holes in my knowledge and experience. I went to grad school in Madrid and then have been back in Seattle, actually teaching at SAS for most of that time since then. For this course, the goals are primarily, one is to help students learn how to learn a language. So we want them, there's a lot of metacognitive aspects to that, just in terms of figuring out what things work for each student. And I want to spark an interest and a love in learning and learning a language in particular that could continue throughout high school and possibly beyond. So Spanish 1 is sort of the launching point for students. Most students continue the same language through high school. Some will switch or add another language later in high school, but realizing that this could be something that either carries students in Spanish throughout high school and beyond, or maybe they'll be introduced to something else, some art, some history, a biography of someone that will kind of spur their interest and keep them interested and make them want to explore things beyond. And then the sort of topics we cover have to do with simple communication about themselves. So themselves, families, where they might want to travel and things they might want to know, pastimes, school, and friends. And I say simple communication because that really gets at sort of the expectations and the level of proficiency that we're expecting in Spanish 1. And this is a slide from the American Council of Teachers of Foreign Languages, ACTFL, and their proficiency levels. And a lot of times people will ask, well, will students be fluent by the end of high school Spanish or language, or where will they be? Will they be able to do this or that? And I think this slide provides really good information about what exactly we're expecting. So students in Spanish 1 are in this novice triangle here at the bottom, and truly they're coming in at different levels in that. Some students have some experience already with Spanish or speaking or learning another language that helps their proficiency. Some students have none of that experience and are really truly coming in at that point, at the lowest point. But so we would expect them to be starting in a variety of places and actually ending too, but all really within that novice level. So the key there is they're communicating. It's what we might call minimal, and it's formulaic. So it will be the stuff they've been exposed to. They can choose out of lists. They can add to lists. They can use extra lingual things. They'll look at a lot of videos, graphics, where there'll be some language and text-based things, but also other clues to what's being communicated. And we would expect them to produce communication in that same way. And the learning cycle in our class, like other SAS classes, is one of preparation, practice, and proficiency demonstration. So preparation might be looking like the input they're getting, vocabulary presentation, audio or video input, maybe a short text or video lesson. Practice is how they're then using that preparation they've gotten. So games, interactive slides like Pear Deck, where they have to do something with the information, some guided conversation. So I would give either sometimes the Spanish when we're first working on communication, or sometimes the translations in English to guide students through a conversation that they then practice in small groups. Some self-study that can be like self-paced study with feedback on computer-based stuff, and then some audio and video comprehension activities. And then they will demonstrate proficiency. And this is really where we're assessing what they can do with the things they've seen and have been practicing. So there are some online assessments. Spanish 1 students have already taken one of those on identifying phrases a teacher might use in the classroom and producing some phrases a student might use in the classroom. There will be some live oral interviews, and the first one for Spanish 1 is coming up at the end of next week or the beginning of the following week. And there's some flexible scheduling with that, as with all of our proficiency demonstrations. They will do some audio and video responses and some multimedia projects. And with proficiency demonstrations, it's important to know that there tends to be flexible scheduling. So because they're mostly doing them asynchronously, they can do them when they're ready to do it, and they've showed that they're ready. And they can redo them, because the goal here is to gain proficiency and demonstrate that. So if that happens the first time they take an assessment or these proficiency checks, that's fine. If there are areas where they need improvement, they can work on those areas and come back and take those to demonstrate increased proficiency. And of course, we use synchronous and asynchronous activities in any class, in our remote, as we would in hybrid or in person. And an important thing is why we do each of those things. So synchronous activities can be helpful because the students get real-time feedback. They can get clarification of meanings so they can move on, like if they're stuck. And then this very important communal aspect, which is so important always in learning, in language learning, and especially now when we are physically apart, I think it's really important. So like we'd had a rock, paper, scissors tournament at the beginning of class yesterday, just in Spanish, but for some of that community building and fun. Some of the activities we do are things like TPR, which is sort of like a Simon Says, advanced Simon Says. So students get some input and need to do something, show they're doing something with it. There's a lot of live conversation practice and some small group practice and discussion. Asynchronous things are benefits of those include flexible scheduling, less time pressure, and students having some more choice in being able to focus on interests and or challenge areas. So that would be like online practice with automated feedback. They can do that when they have time to do it and have time to take in the feedback. Many assessments will be asynchronous to provide that flexible scheduling and variability of time for completion, since students work and process at different rates. Some video and audio intake is asynchronous, and that's, again, so students can repeat, slow it down, pause, and take it in when it's a good time for them, when technology is working, and all of those things are true. And then that recorded lessons are video input, so they're similar to that. I am, of course, available for support and feedback. That's a really important aspect of the class. So as I said at the beginning, email is the best way to contact me. I'm in person. I am available via Zoom during flex time, and that's that 15-minute kind of extension of each block. And for me, that's a drop-in time. I'm in the Zoom room. Students, I prioritize it for students from that previous block, but they can hang out on the call. They can leave for a minute and come back in. If they've been working asynchronously, they can drop back in. And then, of course, I'm available during conference time, which is until 3:45 most days. And that is by appointment, just so that I don't double book students, or sometimes I have other meetings that come up. And that can be found on my conference scheduler, which is available on my Schoology page. And it's where I schedule all of my student and advisee appointments. So again, I'm not double booking myself. And then, of course, live feedback, which I give to students in class, if it's something for the whole class, in a larger setting, in small breakout rooms when we work together in small groups or individually, and in text and audio notes on Schoology. And speaking of Schoology, you should have access to the Spanish 1 Schoology page. There you can find, of course, agenda for each week, the slide decks we use in class each week, a practice activities folder, which is a good place for asynchronous practice, some of which we would have done in class and some of which is extra if students want practice for particular extra topics. You can also find a screencast of how to navigate my Schoology page, although I really recommend that if possible, you have your student show you how to navigate, because I think sometimes that teaching someone else how to do it can help solidify for that learner, the student in this case, where things are and how to navigate. And yeah, that's it. I'm super excited to be teaching Spanish 1 this year and getting to know your students, and just be in touch with any questions. Okay, gracias. Hasta luego.